Many thanks for your company here. We'll be taking you live to the Jubilee House shortly for a press interaction. Then we'll also get an update on the power situation. We know that Gridco has some issues and the extensive power outage in parts of the country. I'll take you live there and give you all the details. But first, let's give you an update on the tidal wave situation in the Volta region. 15 communities, 200 to 300 homes affected, up to 4,000 residents displaced. Today, we are in Fuvuma, and we're told that the basic school there has been completely destroyed, compelling the schools to study in just 2 classrooms after the tidal waves destroyed more than 200 structures along the coastal line of some communities in the Volta region. So as it stands now, the kindergarten to JHS 2 students are cramped up in just 1 classroom, while the final year students occupy the 2nd classroom to prepare for their final exams next week. Makba is our man on the ground and will take you there shortly. But first, he's been interacting with residents and students of Fuvuma. And here's his report.
This is Kejikofe in the Keta municipality. What you're seeing behind me is a sunny day flooding. This flooding was not caused by the rain. And after 48 hours, after high tides pounded communities along the coastline of the Volta region, some of these flooded areas have not dried up. And what we can see right now, a personnel of the National Disaster Management Organization moving to some of these affected people to distribute relief items. We have the Deputy Director General of the National Disaster Management Organization leading the delegation to visit these communities to distribute relief items.
We have some soap, we have rice, we have some bowls, we have mosquito coil in there, and we have some mattresses. So these are but a few of the items to bring some relief in the interim. The assessment is still going on, and other reliefs will also follow. Churches and other organizations to also come and support the victims. Government is doing its part through NADMO providing these reliefs. But we also call on other well-meaning Ghanaians who also want to help the people here to come and also support.
I have this woman here with me. They live in the community center. I'm here at Kejikofe, and this is where they've been living for days now. Let's interact with them. Come closer. What's your name?
Grace. My junior brothers, the way they have been going to school, they have been walking through flood. That's not good. It affects us so much.
Your house, tell us, what has become of your house right now?
Oh, it's flooding, and we can't find place to sleep to.
So,
and we can't get place to pack our things.
So where have you been sleeping? You've been sleeping in the community center now?
Yes.
And is that place comfortable?
No, it's not comfortable. Mosquito is around, and we don't have bed to sleep. And 6 of them have been sleeping under 1 mosquito net, and it is not. We are not feeling comfortable with it.
How long have you been living in the community center with your handsome baby?
3 days today.
3 days today.
Yeah.
Look, so your baby also sleeps in the
community center.
In the community center. How many of you sleep there?
We are 4 in 1 net.
4 in 1 net.
Yeah.
And all of you sleep in 1 room.
1 room.
In one mosquito net.
Yes. Very, very flooded because you can't even close our door. Because the water is full in the room, so you can't close the door. Everything is, all over the house is flooded. So we can't find a place to work in the house.
You've seen the relief items that have been brought to you. How is this going to help you?
To help us for some times. It cannot help us to that extent, but it will help us for some times.
He wants to touch the microphone. I'm sure he wants to be a journalist.
Thank you.
Oh, he will not let go of me. How long? Well, she says she's also badly affected by the tidal flooding here, to the extent that she's unable to go to her room. This is the community center here at Kejikofe. This is what is serving as the new home for some of the residents in the Keta municipality who have been displaced. On my left-hand side, You can see these children just finished eating, and I'm told that they got some food from some benevolent person, some good Samaritans who brought them some rice from the Emancipation Beach Resort, and that is what they sat on the floor to eat. In fact, where they are sitting is not too far from the flooded area. Many of the people here, women especially, had to prepare dinner here. This is where they prepared supper, and you can see the coal pots there in the background. You can see the cooking utensils also. Some of them are finished eating, and this one is actually preparing jollof. Yes, and that is what they'll be eating this evening. When they're done, this is their new home. I have with me here the assembly member for the Kejikofe electoral area. Now let's get inside and speak to the assembly member for the Kejikofe electoral area. Let's give you a sense, an idea of what this place looks like. And this is the community center, and this is where I'm told 15 families, 15 families, 10 families, 15 families I'm told sleep. Not really completed, but this is where they're sleeping, and this is the water they've been using. You can see the water in the basin, so the women and children sleep here in this community center. And in fact, that is the only bulb here in this community center. In fact, let's take a look at what is also here. So women and children sleep here, and these are some of the relief items that they got earlier today. These are the relief items you got today?
These are some of the relief items we got today from NADMO. Yeah. Earlier around this 5:30 dusk, we got it.
And we can also see the rice, and then the cooking oil also in there. These relief items were distributed to 3 districts affected by the high tides here. Now, the 3 districts, we're talking about the Ketu South municipality, we're talking about the Keta municipality, and then we are talking about the Anglon district. We spent most of the time at Salakofe, but this afternoon we learned from the NADMO deputy director that Salakofe is not the hardest hit, actually. He tells us that the Keta municipality is the hardest hit. Now, so this is a place where women and children also sleep. That room I showed you is another place to sleep. So you can see that mosquito nets. A woman I spoke to earlier at the distribution ground for the relief items told me that she had 7 children, and they sleep in these mosquito nets. They're waiting outside, and they'll be coming. So some people sleep on this hard bench, no mattress whatsoever. This is what they sleep on. Today they got a mattress from NADMO. Hopefully, they'll have a soft bed to sleep on today. But these are all mosquito nets. Some of the women have 3 children, and they sleep here with them. Most of the men actually do not sleep here in the community center. Okay, so this old man sleeps here. Okay, good evening. No, afia nyo awu afame.
Fia nyo wa fama. Voche la fame kaka. Me ba gyo ko viji ko.
Okay. Well, he says their homes are still flooded, and this place is a better alternative to their home, and so they feel better staying here than being in their homes because their homes are still flooded. So, what's happening here? What's here? What?
Somebody and his husband, he's here.
Wait, somebody and his husband sleep here? Let me see. So how many children sleep here? So a man and a wife.
A woman and one of their grandchild.
One of their grandchild, yeah. And they sleep in this small room.
Yes.
And I'm sure you gave them this room because it's a man and a wife. Well done.
To give them some little comfort.
Yeah, little comfort and some kind of privacy. Okay. So there's another one here.
Husband and wife.
Husband and wife.
A wife and children, and there were 4 children.
And about how many children?
4 children, so there were 6 in here.
Okay, so let's have a look.
And this where they are
And
sleeping.
this is where they sleep.
And they are, this is where they are.
So that's Maxwell Agwagba's earlier report there from the Keta area. And today, like I said, he's in the Fuvume area. And we're told, news just coming in, sun-winning activities in the area has been banned. Earlier, we're told that they were uprooting mangroves, amongst others. It's the activities of these indigents that has brought us where we are. Maxwell Agwagba joins us shortly. Okay, he's live with us right now. And like I said, also, we'll be looking at the power situation where the Greco boss will be joining us shortly via Zoom. But let me quickly wrap up with Maxwell on this developing issue about the sun-winning activities in the area being banned. Maxwell Agwagba is live with us. Maxwell, if you can hear me and all is set at your end, please bring us up to speed on the situation where you are.
Well, MFA, we just arrived from a community called Vuvume and Fufama. And that's where we just came from. And right now, our present location is Jita. I'll be telling you what we're doing here shortly. But at Fuvume, we were told about the devastation caused by the tidal waves. And then when we visited, we saw the destruction also. That Fuvume is actually in the Anglo district. Now, a school that was constructed sometime in 2016, the Fuvume Basic School, as I speak to you right now, in 2016, was washed away by the ocean. The tidal waves that devastated the coastline of some parts of the Volta region affected the newly built school in that community. And as I speak to you now, about 234 students are now compelled to learn in 2 classrooms. And when we visited, students in kindergarten 1 and then junior high school are compelled to learn in 1 classroom. And then final year students also learn in 1 classroom. We are told that they are starting their basic education certificate examination next week. Now, in the community itself, many people we saw were removing their roofing sheets. Some of them we spoke to told us that they anticipate that the tidal waves will still, come to the community and destroy their properties. And they say that they think that at this point, the only thing they can salvage is their roofing sheet. And that was what they were doing when we got to the community. Many people have also lost their livelihoods. Now here also in Jita, the situation is not different at all. Now, the popular beach resort, the tourism industry is also affected. The popular beach resort here, Meet Me There, was also affected. And we are told that it got so bad to the extent that some guests who were around, managers were actually forced to give them, their refunds, to refund monies that they are paid to stay here just because of the tidal waves. I have the manager here with me. Let's speak to him and find out what the situation was. So you're welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you. My name is Christian Ghana.
Okay, Christian,
co-director of the place. Meet Me the African Home Lodge.
Can you look into the camera for me? Yeah. Tell me, on a normal day, what does this place look like?
Oh, it's always look great. Yeah, you see people lying down on the deck chairs, people on the decking, which has been submerged by the water here.
This one was submerged?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of this area, they are sitting areas. We got 2 rooms over there, which are still in the water.
2 rooms in the water?
Yeah, they're still in the water, as you can see.
Yeah.
We got our sitting area.
So 2 rooms there?
2 rooms there.
Okay.
They are still in the water now.
Okay, can we get closer to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then we go our spa, which is also currently in the water.
Yeah.
So, as at now, there's not much we can do than to wait for this to drain down, and then that compel us to refund all the guests that we have to have. And those who were in, then we have to refund them to go, which is sad. And it affects livelihood because we have about 30 community members working here. Yeah.
But this has even receded, right?
Oh, yeah. Before, where we are standing, it's all flooded. Yeah, it was all flooded. Okay. Now it's draining down a bit. But only God knows when this will go. Yeah.
So how many refunds, how many people did you have to
Well, about 18 people.
18 people?
Yeah.
So about 18 people were staying here?
Yeah.
But you had to give them a refund?
A refund to go back, yeah. So we've refunded them, and
Okay.
that affects business, as you know. Yeah.
How bad was the situation? The water entered a lot of rooms here?
Yeah, well, it took the main sitting area and the lying down area. Then these 2 rooms and the spa has all been taken. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And if you are here and you can't sit outside, then there's no point coming here because you got a beautiful lagoon and then a beautiful sea view over there. And if you can't sit outside and look, then there's no point coming.
Okay.
So.
How many years have you been working here?
10 years now.
10 years?
Yeah.
And is this the first time you see something like that?
I know this is the 3rd time, but this is the worst ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
The worst of the 3 times that you've had to witness this?
Yeah, this is the worst of the 3 times that I've witnessed this.
Okay. What do you think is the solution? Finally, what do you think is the solution to this? Sea defense, you also think?
Well, sea defense, which is still temporary, because the sea, as the ice keep melting, it will definitely go over the sea defense at one point. And the way, the river is there.
Okay.
If you are here, the sea is here, so we are actually stranded.
Okay.
Well, but then sea defense, for now, will help. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Welcome.
Yeah, so you just heard from the manager of this beach resort that was affected by the tidal waves. Now we're picking information right now also that the Keta Municipal Assembly has actually banned sun-winning activities in the municipality. And we told that a joint police and military task force has been formed to ensure that directive. Remember, on Monday when we spoke to the municipal chief executive, he stated that one of the main contributory factors to the tidal waves that we are seeing here in this municipality is the activity of people who go to the beach to fetch sand for construction, purposes. That has been banned now. Anyone who is caught will be arrested, and a joint police and military task force has been formed to ensure that people respect that directive.
That's my colleague Maxwell Agbagba. They're reporting this time from Jita, giving us the situation there. We'll definitely return to Maxwell much later or subsequently in our bulletins on this extensive coverage of the tidal wave situation in the Volta region. 15 communities, up to 4,000 residents affected, 200 to 300 homes also devastated as a result of this. But let me take you to some other pressing issues also now, because JoyNews understands that there have been some extensive power outages in parts of the country, leaving some communities in the dark. Let's get to understand exactly what may have happened. Engineer Makba is the chief executive of the Ghana Grid Company Limited, and thankfully he joins us via Zoom this afternoon. Thank you very much for your time, sir, Engineer Ba. So exactly what has happened, you can say. Hello, Engineer Ba. Please, you'll have to unmute. Hello, Engineer Ba.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you hear me now?
Many thanks for your company, loud and clear. Yes. So we are told some parts of the country have been hit by power outages. What would you say is the explanation for that?
Okay, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your cherished viewers. Indeed, there has been a challenge with the transmission system, but nobody is in darkness now. There is no power outage anywhere, but that is not to say that we don't have a challenge. Indeed, and let me make one correction. I'm the Director, System Operations, not the Chief Executive.
Thank you. So how extensive is this, that technical challenge that you're having?
Okay, so what has happened is that somewhere in the western region near Bogoso, there has been a tower, a communication tower has collapsed. Unfortunately, it fell on the transmission line, the major transmission line on 330,000 volts from Abuazi to Kumasi. The tower collapsed on the lines. So as it fell, it pulled down the adjoining 2 towers. So in effect, we've lost the transmission line from Abuazi to Kumasi. So the challenge that has brought is that we are not able to evacuate power from the Abuazi generation enclave onto, from the Abuazi generation enclave to Kumasi. So Kumasi is currently being supplied by other transmission lines, and that is what has happened.
Okay, well, so how are we resolving it, or has it been resolved already?
No, it's the towers are down. It's going to take a while to replace them, because now you have to reassemble everything, reconstruct everything, and bring up the tower again. And we hope that the damage is not so extensive, because if what has happened affects the foundation, it means that we have to construct everything from scratch, and that's going to take some time. But we are hoping that it's just the towers that are gone, and within 2 weeks, they will be up, if that is the only damage.
But what's the preliminary report you're getting from the ground on this? Because you are hopeful that we don't have an extensive damage. What are your engineers telling you about what has happened?
Okay, so our engineers left today for the area. They've reached there. They are assessing the situation as of now. We don't have a report yet, and we believe that by tomorrow afternoon we should have the full report on the extent of the damage on the tower, the members, and then the foundation themselves. So we are waiting for that report tomorrow.
Okay, well, so we'll have to wait till tomorrow, but the assurance is that this is not going to affect the power situation in any part of the country, you say?
The voltages will be low, especially in Kumasi. So we are assessing the situation during the peak. That is when the system is stressed most. And that is where we expect that the voltages will go down. If they go down to an extent that the system cannot sustain it, then Kumasi and its environs might be affected. But apart from Kumasi, all other places in Ghana will have adequate supply.
So what should we be doing, at least residents in Kumasi watching you right now, in case voltage goes low? Is there anything that we are required to do as consumers?
Not yet. We are liaising. We are working with our stakeholders, particularly ECG. If the situation during peak time is when it's stressed. So peak time is between 6:30 and 9:30. If the situation is such that the voltages are going too low for Kumasi, then we will advise ECG to shed some load in some parts of Kumasi. However, if we assess the situation at peak, today is the first time that we are having a real challenge.
Okay.
If we assess the situation at peak and we can contain it, then we will continue to have normal supply in Kumasi. However, the voltages will not be at the best as we used to have.
So knock on wood, we are hoping we don't get to shed the load as you've been saying.
Yes,
but should we be able, but should we get there in a worst case scenario, how long a period should we be expecting the load should be shared?
I'm saying that this is only during the peak,
okay,
between 6 and 10 p.m.
Okay.
After which the demand goes down and will be. So we are just hoping that everything will be fine during the peak, and we'll advise ECG and the citizens of Kumasi accordingly. So
6 to 10 during the peak, should we be expecting it to be extended to days, or would just be for the hours, or are we expecting it to go for a number of days?
Okay, so the challenge is only during the peak time. Okay, that is when we will have this. So after the peak, everything reverts to normal. So as I'm speaking to you now, it is off peak. The tower is still down, and it will be down for hopefully not more than 2 weeks. But under this circumstance, what is going to happen is that during peak times between 6 and 10 p.m., we might have some voltage challenges.
Okay.
And when that happens, we need to normalize the load so that we don't send the whole country into instability. Okay. Well, we're grateful for the time and the explanation, but I'm sure that residents in these areas will be duly communicated to via statements like we've seen you do previously. Exactly.
Okay, we are grateful. That's Engineer Ba. There is Director, System Services for Gridco. So those in Kumasi, this is the situation we may experience. They are hoping to put measures in place that we do not get there low voltage. But as we speak, he insists that no part of the country is without power. So that's the situation now with Gridco and power. We'll take a quick break here on the Pulse. When we return, we'll take you to the Jubilee House and give you updates on that press conference that we're expecting to be held, amongst others. Please stay with us here on the Pulse. We'll be right back. This is the Pulse, and many thanks for choosing us. Let me take you to the Jubilee House now. We're expecting a press briefing from the communications team at the presidency, but I'm told there's a development. And Presidential Affairs Correspondent Elton Brobe joins us via phone with updates on that. Elton, what's the situation?
What we have just said, but we've just been told that the press briefing will rather take place tomorrow morning. It's unclear the last minute cancellation, but we've been told that instead of today, it's been moved to tomorrow morning. We don't know what time tomorrow morning, but that's the information that just came through.
Okay. Well, this is a regular press conference that we've seen being held over the period, or this was supposed to be a special press conference?
It was supposed to be the usual Jubilee House press briefing, and it was going to afford the Director of Communication to update the nation on some, events surrounding the president, and also take questions from journalists on matters of national interest. So it was just going to be the usual press briefing. We were seated at 3. We were told to be seated at 3. We were seated at 3, and then just around 3:30, we were told that it will no longer hold, and for now we will be able to go and then reconvene tomorrow morning. We don't know what time tomorrow morning. But the information is that the presidency will not take place today, but rather tomorrow morning.
Okay. Well, staying at the presidency, though, we know that the President Akufo-Addo was supposed to be heading to Cape Verde for a ceremony there. Has that ended? Has he gone? What exactly is the status of that?
Right. So he was in Cape Verde yesterday in his capacity as the chairperson of the ECOWAS to witness the inauguration of the Cape Verdean president. So he was there in that capacity. It was just a day trip. He went yesterday morning, returned last night. As of this, they are in a cabinet meeting. But I'm sure the president will be back on another trip tomorrow. Those details we are yet to hear. But as it relates to the Cape Verde, if he was there yesterday, he came back yesterday. He was there in his capacity as the ECOWAS chair, witnessed the swearing in of the president-elect of Cape Verde.
Okay. Well, Elton Brobe, Presidential Affairs Correspondent there, joining us from the Jubilee House, just giving us details that the expected press conference to be addressed by the Communications Director, Eugene Ahin, has been called off for today. It should be scheduled to another date. We are told tomorrow morning, but we are following events there and we'll bring you more on that. But on to some other stories now, and it's just about days to the budget presentation. And in our build-up today, we focus on the education sector. So budget guideline document released by the finance minister projects that there will be some 14% increment in allocations to the education sector. And for all you know, as part of most of it, the significant part of that is going to the tertiary education. And how will the 2022 budget impact the sector? We'll get onto details of that shortly. But first, on your screens, you can look at the projected allocation for the 2022 budget. So the projected budgetary allocation for the Education Ministry is pegged at 17.8 billion, according to the guideline document released by the Finance Ministry. Well, out of the 17.8 billion, 12.3 billion Ghana cedis is expected to be allocated for the payment of wages and salaries, which is key. It's become an issue on that. That's where we are with it. But the ministry's total budgetary allocation for 2022 is also projected to go up by almost, 14%. And then allocation for the payment of wages and salaries is also expected to increase by some 18% in 2022. And already we've been hearing from the tertiary, workers, the lecturers, amongst others, hoping that there'll be some key mention of their sector in the budget to be presented by Ken Ofuriatta on Monday. Shortly, Deputy Head of our research desk here at JoyNews, Winston Amwa, will join me with details of all these figures to give us a breakdown of what to expect. Because we are getting the basic education, secondary education, university education, and colleges of education and polytechnic education. That's for the 2021-2022. That's what it looks like now. And the actual expenditure allocation from 2018 all the way to 2020, we have 11.8 for 2018, 2019, 12.4%, and then 2020 is 12.6%. That's what it looks like as we speak. And shortly, I'll go onto the phone also and speak to Mr. Kofi Asare on what we should expect in terms of priority areas for next year when it comes to education. But let me quickly bring in Winston Amwa to help us make sense of all the figures that we have on the screen shortly. Winston, many thanks for joining us on the Pulse. So help us with a better understanding of all the figures that you've put together in terms of our expectations when it comes to education for the 2022 budget.
Well, so these are, first of all, the 2022 figures are guidelines, and that's to guide the preparation of the budget. So if you look at the 2021 and 2022, when it comes to basic education, it's the same figure, 4.7 billion Ghana cedis when it comes to compensation. Few things would come to mind, and you would ask yourself, does it mean that they're not recruiting new teachers? Does it also mean that nobody's going to retire for another person to replace them? How about the agreed increment over the period? And so these, again, are guidelines. And so the real figures will be known on Wednesday. We're told that the budget will no longer be presented on Monday, but on Wednesday. So Wednesday, the 17th of November. So once we get to Wednesday, the 17th of November, we would know the details when the appendixes are presented. But of interest would be the university education when it comes to the compensation of workers or persons within that particular setup, because you're looking at an increase from 1.2 billion to 1.6 billion, and you'd want to find out what would constitute this increase. Few things. At this point in time, you could do the permutations and say, is government intending to recruit more lecturers or more workers within the university setup, or maybe government wants to increase their salaries? Any of these could be possible. Again, these are guidelines, and so we cannot pinpoint and say this is what is going to happen. Unless the budget itself is presented on Wednesday, then we can pinpoint it and say, based on the presentation of the budget, this is what would be done. So we're looking at an increase of 400 million Ghana cedis. And that's a lot of money. If it goes into the compensation of lecturers, that would mean that the agitations and the concerns by lecturers that they need an increase in their salaries has been met by government. The situation is no different when it comes to the polytechnic sector also. We've seen an increase of about 140 million from 417 million Ghana cedis to 556 million Ghana cedis, and the colleges of education from 227 million to 281 million. So around this time, we could just look at all the possibilities. This could happen, that could happen, but these are guidelines. And so for us, it's just a way of guiding what could pan out on the day.
Well, so that's at least you've given us a breakdown of this particular guideline and the allocations. But already we know that the tertiary level, the lecturers are already making some demands. There's been labor agitations. In that regard, UTAC, for instance, concerns about their pays and all. What sense do you get in terms of our interactions with them ahead of the budget presentation?
Well, if these guidelines are anything to go by, you could reasonably infer that there will be some bit of an upward adjustment, possibly. Again, I'd want to choose the words carefully. If these are anything to go by. If the same figures are put out on Wednesday, then it means that we could see an upward adjustment in their conditions of service, particularly when it comes to their wages. If this is reduced, which could be the case, because, let's be very honest here. The fact is that while we talk about getting out of COVID-19, we're not out of COVID-19. We're still within the effects of COVID-19. Yes, there's a bit of movement which has triggered consumption, and so these consumption would lead to growth of the Ghanaian economy, but that's just not all. Other things would have to be done. And so you would agree that the country is not totally open or is not fully opened. And so we cannot pretend to be out of it, and we cannot pretend to be spending more. If there's anything 2020 taught us, is that we spent a lot. While we had a reduction in revenue, we spent more as a result of COVID-19, all the social intervention projects policies that came out because of COVID-19. Some way, somehow, one of the things we have to realize, and I'm sure this has been said before, one of the things we have to realize is that these monies came from debts. We had to borrow to do a lot of these things, because once the gap between the money you generate and the money you spend would have to be funded by debt.
Then it raises the questions about the targets that we've set for ourselves for 2022. Are they realistic, narrowing it down to the education sector, you'd say?
Well, it is realistic because, look, let me just say that if you look at what we have said, we've said we're going to spend more on education. We have to spend more on education because we've talked about the next big thing being the knowledge-based economy. We can no longer talk about the fact. We've talked about having a problem when it comes to technology and all of that. So how do you ensure that you have the human resources to be able to trigger the next phase of your country's development? You would do so through education, you do so through skills development. And education becomes key in all of this. Way back, about 50 years ago, people have talked about the fact that education, apart from being a passport to getting you a job, was going to be a major factor in the growth of every country's development. That's where we find ourselves today. And that's why it's important that, look, China has done it, the Asian tigers have done it. They invested a lot in education, but also in technological education, not just engaging in education, engaging in liberal arts, but also engaging in sectors of education that can go a long way in enhancing your country's development. So that's not bad at all. We need to be investing more in education. But the question really is, are we out of it yet? That's why I say it will be important for us to actually minimize our expectations and also be mindful, because government is looking at other sources of generating revenue. What could be those sources? Are there any subsidies that government is giving that government may want to stop or remove those subsidies? These are questions we should be asking ourselves as we get close to the budget presentation. Okay,
that's the Deputy Head of JoyNews Research Desk, Winston Amwa. Many thanks for joining us this afternoon to help us make sense of all the figures that we've seen, the facts and figures as we wait for the budget presentation. But let me bring in also Kofi Asare. He's the Chief Executive of Africa Education Watch. He joins us via Zoom. So you are an education watcher already. There's a scramble for attention. We've been looking at all the sectors. But before I bring you in, though, just before I let Winston go, I would want to find out, because we've been doing our build-up. We've talked about the fuel prices. We've talked about other sectors. Going into tomorrow, what should we expect? Or you don't want to give it away just yet? Where are we going to focus on tomorrow in our budget build-up, budget 2022? I knew that will come. So he won't give it away just yet. So we'll wait for that tomorrow. We'll focus on another key sector. But Mr. Asare, we're grateful for your time here on the Pulse this afternoon. So you are an education watcher. Going into the budget presentation, for instance, what would you say should be the key learnings or key priority areas when it comes to the education sector for government in terms of our financial statement for 2022?
Good afternoon to your cherished audience. Civil society organizations, of which we are part of, submitted proposals to the Ministry of Finance in respect of our inputs into this year's budget. For us, this year's budget is critical because as we navigate our way through COVID and try to resuscitate the economy and get revenue back on track, we are much mindful of the fact that there are likely to be, if not cuts, significant reduction in how much should have been proportionally made available to social sectors, including education. We have asked the Ministry of Education to, as a result of the deficits in financing, for instance, education infrastructure at the basic level, to relax the cap on the GET fund. GET fund is currently capped at 25%, which is virtually denying the allocation of up to 70% of what should have been allocated to GET fund. And we are allocating same to other sectors. If you look at the basic education sector, for instance, in 2020, very few basic schools were built, about 240 junior high schools and only 100 primary schools. And we have a problem at hand where about 4,000 primary schools do not have junior high schools. So we made a proposal that Finance Minister will have to relax the cap on GET fund and free resources to develop basic education infrastructure. That is our first expectation, so that the Ministry of Education will have a plan to, at least in the next 4 years, assure Ghanaians that every primary school will have a junior high school. The focus is mainly on basic education because that's where we have funding deficits. The next area is in the area of teachers. If you recall, on Teachers' Day, If
I may come in, Mr. Asare, so from the figures, the basic education level, we are hoping that some more funding will be pumped into it. But interestingly, from the guidelines that I see, we're still at 4.7 billion. It doesn't look like we're adding anything to basic education.
Yeah, so that is the challenge we have there, because the guidelines are based on last year's. Normally when they are doing budget, you either do zero budgeting or incremental budgeting. I suspect this is the incremental budgeting where we are just working up from last year's estimates, but we have a serious situation, and we expect the education sector expenditure increases. The ministry wanted to engage 40,000 teachers this year. We learned that only about 600 or so were given clearance. And so we are worried because there are so many thousands of classrooms without teachers. And the ministry's STEM agenda will only succeed if it's one classroom, one teacher policy prevails. And so we want to see the finance minister present a budget where not only education is increasing its share of the expenditure, but basic education is receiving significant money to enable the ministry engage the extra teachers in need, even though we know that there are surplus teachers that need to be distributed within the system. And most importantly, commit more funding to expand basic education infrastructure. We are not too particular about, or too enthused about the fact that percentage-wise we are increasing allocation. Last year, about 14% of the budget went to education. Yeah. We realized that after 14% went to education, a sizable chunk went into servicing of debt. For example, GET fund, out of $1.4 billion allocated from GET fund, 60% of that money went to service debts. So it is heartwarming to note that yes, the allocation of the budget to the education sector as a percentage of the entire public sector is increasing. But we want to be cautious for now and note which areas the increase is affecting. And then most importantly, having in mind that the global benchmark is to have 20% of public sector expenditure or budget allocated to education. We are not at 20%. Last year, we allocated 14%. And by the data you are churning out, it means that we are still not going to get anywhere near 17%. And so we are cautiously optimistic, but let's wait and see the areas that are likely to be affected by the increment. Okay,
but it appears that wages and salaries is taking the biggest chunk of this already. At the tertiary level, like I've said, there's been hits with a lot of labor agitations, and the lecturers are hoping that some key increments will be made. From the figures that I'm seeing, it appears that they're going to get about 400,000 increment in that. Will that be adequate, knowing the situation as we speak? UTAG is asking for some over $1,000 at least, and they've been trying to negotiate that for some time, led to a number of, strikes amongst others. Do you think that in 2022, anything will be different looking at the amount that has been allocated to them?
Yeah, I was expecting to see some significant improvement in the personal emolument expenditure of tertiary institutions. If you look at last year and last 2 years expenditure allocation and its spread, you realize that significant portions of the tertiary education budget is coming from IGF. And so with the labor education going on and the threats of UTAG withdrawing their services increasing to the crescendo, it was obvious that government had to find a sustainable solution to what had been promised years ago but hasn't been fulfilled.
Okay.
So I think it is a priority, and it should be a priority of government to resolve the UTAG issue once and for all to avert any strike as we move into the second academic year post-COVID. So that is expected.
Okay.
But again, let me quickly indicate that in as much as it's important to resolve labor issues at tertiary level, there are similar labor issues at the basic level. There were threats of strike from the pre-tertiary teacher unions that were only managed. There are a lot of items on the CBA of teachers, including rural teachers allowance, which are not being paid. The earlier as a country we begin to address these, factors that affect teacher motivation, especially affecting teachers' decision to accept postings to go and teach in rural areas and stay there. The earlier we resolve them, the better. We don't have to wait for strikes and hard strike before we act on this, because even if they don't go on strike, they remain demotivated or they always refuse to accept postings to these areas where education is grossly underserved.
Okay. Well, so just before I let you off, in wrapping up though, going into the budget presentation on Wednesday and what you've seen for the education sector per the guidelines, you're satisfied that all will be well on the education front in 2022?
Not at all. Not at all. What we are expecting to see is a significant commitment of budgetary allocation to CAPEX. CAPEX is where infrastructure is financed. Government needs money. We need money to eliminate 5,403 schools taking place under trees and sheds. And government has a plan that in the next 5 years is going to be eliminating these schools every year. We need about 700,000 Ghana cedis a year. 700 million Ghana cedis a year to be able to raise 3.5 million Ghana cedis in 5 years to eliminate them. So we want to see an increase in the CAPEX budget line, because that is the most underfunded budget line in the education sector in the past 2 or 3 years. And until we see capital expenditure increasing in the budget, it will be challenging to fathom where funding will come from to eliminate the growing number of schools under trees. Not to talk about the 4,000 schools, primary schools that do not have junior high schools, for which reason students graduate out of school or have to pay for private education to access junior high school education.
Mr. Kofi Asare, indeed, we are grateful for your time. That's Executive Director, Africa Education Watch, and we've been focusing on the education sector in our build-up to the budget. Quickly then, it's a good time to cross over to the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow. And my colleague Seth Kwame Boateng is our man on the ground as usual. Fantastic job from the COP26 conference. And today we are with the EPA Chief Executive, Mr. Kokofu. Seth, take us away.
For your time. Today has been a very, very busy day because today was Ghana Day and series of events took place. But one issue that came up that I would run by the boss of EPA is how we can protect the lives of some 2,900 Ghanaians if we're able to improve our air quality. This analysis was done a few hours ago, and it struck me and the implications of that. So thanks for your time, Honorable, and thanks for coming here. Now let's go through that projection, that analysis the EPA made, that if we are unable to improve our air quality, we are likely to lose about 2,900 lives. This is serious.
Well, let me put it in its proper perspective. The records are there, and we do have annual reports that is compiled by Ghana Medical Authority, through the Ghana Health Services through the Ministry of Health in collaboration with EPA and then the World Bank. And the records are that some 2,900 deaths annually are occurring here in Ghana due to respiratory and air quality diseases. So it is an alarming rate. And we at EPA have taken it up that cleaning up the air, ensuring air quality, and then also doing monitoring and tracking the causes and the drivers of poor air quality is quite important and necessary. That's why we showcase that kind of information. It is not about losing 2,900 deaths. We are already losing, 2,900 lives annually, according to that report. So if nothing is done to stop that trend, we will not find ourselves in a better position as a nation. So the collapse of Aboblosi, where electrical and electronic waste are being burnt indiscriminately to the detriment of the environment, causing massive air pollution, compromising on the air quality, is something that we all have to embrace. And kudos to the regional minister and the RCC and all others that contributed to that. Flowing from there, we have got to up our game as to how we collect, manage electronic and electrical waste right down from the point source to the facilities that has the capacity and the capabilities to recycle them and dispose of them environmentally.
Now let's come to the 47 NDC's nationally determined contributions that we have submitted, and from the analysis that we saw a while ago, it appears we're going to need between $9 to $15.5 billion to do this. And if we're able to do this, then we improve the quality of lives of Ghanaians. We can improve our air quality. Our failure to do this would maybe worsen our plight and get more Ghanaians killed. But do we have this money? And since the worthy nations are not forthcoming, how are we going to handle this?
Yes, if you listen to the presentation well, we have carefully, under the instructions of the President of the land, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, looked at updating the nationally determined contributions. And in that sphere, we are able to link up what we intend doing from bottom-up approach, where we will finally get the sustainable development goals also achieved. Indeed, 8 of such targets or goals within the SDGs will be able to achieve through the implementation and the successful realization of our nationally determined contributions. There are 47 in number that comprises mitigation and adaptation plans. And getting them through requires funding, as you're saying. And we've budgeted between 9.3 to almost $16 billion within a 10-year framework. So within a decade, we are to spend such money if we are going to realize. Within a decade, that's 10 years. We are to realize and spend such money in order to realize the full implementation of our nationally determined contributions. But flowing from that, we have a segment of that we say is unconditional, and we have others that we place them as being conditional. The unconditional ones means that we have some kind of funding flowing through. Indeed, about $3.9 billion are already in the system that has gotten approvals and awaiting disbursement here and there. And so, therefore, that could not be a much difficulty. The rest of that are under the conditional thing will be achieved pending on acquisition of funding. And the greatest source of, or the biggest source of funding is being looked at externally, drawing from the pledges that the entire world community has promised.
And that is what has not come yet.
It has not, and to the frustration of all of us.
Yesterday, we had John Kerry, Secretary Kerry, make a statement and called on the G20 countries to honor the pledge they made. How do you receive this from him, coming from him?
Well, maybe he was merely re-echoing the sentiments of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Indeed, it's on record, and it should be put on proper perspective, that he was the only and the first president from the developing countries who boldly gave that kind of indication when he addressed the World Leaders Summit. And he did not mince words. He spoke about the frustration and the disappointment that has been caused by not redeeming that pledge. And for that matter, he was of the view that even though we are not the causes of all these problems, we are the receiving end. And so if we are to contribute our quota to solving the solutions, then they must as well redeem their pledges and their promises, and they should take full responsibility for the cleanup. They caused the mess, and we are in to clean it up. Nevertheless, he reiterated Ghana's commitment to go ahead with national determined contributions to do our part. So John Kerry, yes, he has said so, but he knows where to direct that message. It is his own people. He has got to sit them down and do what is needful.
Before I hand over to you, Emefa, let me ask you this. You have also been talking about how we're going to get Ghanaians informed, educated on climate change, and how we can depoliticize the issues that will come up. What is the plan when we leave here? And how are we going to ensure that every Ghanaian gets to understand what this is? Because I am a bit scared, and it appears we are sitting on a time bomb waiting to explode.
Yes, you saw my technical director giving a presentation on education and awareness strategies that we've been put together all these whiles. We've rolled it out, though, with the Ministry of Education and other sectors. However, we think much needs to be done. It is about reaching out to the people at all corners of our country. And the president was here, and he made a statement on that. And he has asked myself and my colleagues within EPA and others to carry the message down there. We're going to employ and then implore you, the media, particularly the broadcasting and the print, to come along with us to do that kind of awareness creation. We at EPA has proposed to give a substantial amount of money within our next year budget, 2022 budget, to education and awareness creation. And to that effect, we are going to partner and collaborate with the Ministry of Information to reactivate the local communication channel we used to have, the information service vans that goes along and all that. So very soon you'll be seeing championing some of these courses. And again, the informal sector, informal education, we must have a strategy to reach out to the various religious based organizations to also come on board and help us with that. And we are lucky to have a substantial number of parliamentarians here. The first deputy speaker also came along. We're going to now team up with them critically to have the climate change conversation imbibed in our political.
And you said over there that you sounded like no climate change education, no vote, something like that.
Yes, of course. We're going to employ the electorates to ask us and then demand of politicians coming to them for their votes, including assembly members, what they do understand and appreciate and their contribution towards climate change education within their communities and areas that they want to seek leadership. So these and many other strategies, we will roll them out, and we are very much confident that the president will be happy that he wake up one day and many more Ghanaians, if not all Ghanaians, are very much appreciative of hot climate change is and what we have got to do. And we strongly believe that will help with the attitudinal change that goes around that has affected our sanitation situation and the indiscriminate damage to the environment.
Thank you very much. MFA, so that was the EPA boss. I was seeking to get the MP Tailabi because, Honorable, yes, we will continue this. So you've been here, and we are talking about education, how we can continue educating your electorate.
Yes.
From here, how are you going to do that? Because that's come up strongly in all the meetings that education is key to getting Ghanaians to appreciate the magnitude of what you are talking about.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, because everybody must get involved in this process. Because when the president came here, the question he asked was, how do we get all of this, to our people in the districts, in the regions, the districts, in our communities? Because we are talking about the effect of climate change in Keta as we speak now. The effect is being felt at the local level.
That's right.
So we need to let the people understand what is going on. And I believe that you look at what is happening even here. It is the youth that are championing.
That's right.
So there's no doubt that we have to really get down. And where do we find them now? In our schools, in our churches, and wherever in the country. So I think we have to take, the campaign to, our communities. And that is how the buy-in.
How are you going to rally your colleagues in Parliament to appreciate this so that we tackle this once and for all? Because it's really an issue.
Very well. I was just granting an interview. There's going to be a statement on the floor of Parliament. The fallout from COP26, the way forward. The gaps have been identified. How do we reach out to our people? All of this, would have a buy-in from colleague members of Parliament. And then as a committee, we also have a program. We want to reach out. Every member of Parliament will be encouraged to have, some programs that would help in educating our people so far as, the effects of climate change is concerned. And this is going to be done with the EPA. In fact, we've had discussions even before we came here. And it is going to be targeted at our constituencies and the communities. When we do that, we'll be able to also reach out, to our constituents at the various levels. Okay? And I believe that with that, the message will get to them. The reason why you should not cut down trees, the reason why you should not overuse agrochemicals, the reason why, you must maintain, certain. You see, there's one thing that came up during one of the programs, the indigenous people. We have a lot of what we describe as our traditional practices. We need to really domesticate, with some scientific, what do you call it? Backing.
That's right.
We had certain, certain things that we used to describe as taboos and whatever.
Yeah.
Growing up, right? There were streams that you were not allowed to even bath in it. You were not allowed, to cut down trees. You were not allowed to sweep. You were not allowed to do a lot of things. I mean, these are some of the things.
We need to bring back some of these things.
You see, we need to bring back some of these things. Now, it will help. But then, as I said, we need to really, why wouldn't you be? Why is it that you need not to cut down trees? They must understand that the trees, when you
cut down trees.
Well, no. When you emit carbon dioxide, the trees are responsible for the uptake of carbon dioxide. So they must understand. You understand? But if you tell them don't cut down the trees, and then if carbon dioxide emission increases, it will affect the temperature. When it affects temperature, our rainfall patterns will change and it will affect, the way, we go about our, our agricultural activities. You understand? So these are things that we need to bring down to the doorstep and to let them understand that if we don't do anything about this, a time will come when we will not be able to contain it. Because temperatures are rising. The sea level is rising. A lot of people,
and this is not an issue we can even politicize as we usually do in Ghana, because we will start turning to be MPP, NDC.
This is not politics. This is about what is happening to our people.
Yeah.
Because as we speak today, there are people who do not know when the planting season will start, because the rainfall patterns have changed.
Okay.
You understand? It is nobody's making. It is you and I. It's not one person. It is because of our activities. Though some of us believe that nature also has its way of dealing with things. Our contribution is also enhancing, the degradation, and therefore we must do something about it. And to do, something about it is to get everybody on board.
Okay.
To buy into the fact that if we don't if we don't change our way, our approach towards, nature, we will be in trouble.
Okay, thank you. So, Emefa, you just heard my interaction with the Honorable Ebenezer Labi. He is among the parliamentary delegation that joined the delegation that attended this conference, and they have had their own meetings. It's been back to back for them. It's been quite very busy,
very
for them, because most of the negotiations, they needed to be there and understand the issues so that they would be able to report well when they return to Ghana. Like I said, it's been a very busy day, and still the day has not ended. The Minister of Environment a while ago signed the declaration on 0%, on 100% zero emission, signed in the transport sector, which would make it possible for us to, going forward, switch from fossil fuel use in our vehicles to e-vehicles, like we're going to use electricity to power our vehicles. That declaration was signed a while ago on behalf of government, and a whole lot of issues are coming up.
Seth Kwame Boateng, all the way from Glasgow, from the COP26 Climate Change Conference. Many thanks. Great stuff there. And that's my colleague Seth Kwame Boateng. Now, in barely 24 hours, there will be a major shutdown of transport services by private operators unless government intervenes. And the intervention, according to the 16 driver unions, should be the cancellation of at least 5 taxes on petroleum products. So the National Petroleum Authority has been speaking about this, and they say that the scrapping of some of these taxes could potentially affects the quality of fuel. Fuel prices have increased on more than 3 occasions in the last 2 months alone, and the driver unions say this is unbearable. We've been hearing from energy analyst Kojopoku, who says the call by the driver unions are misplaced, and the NPA agrees. But as we wait for government's decision, policy analyst Peter Tekpe joins us for a conversation on this particular situation. Many thanks for your company. So we've been hearing from the driver unions. They've given a 48-hour ultimatum that expires tomorrow. They say if the intervention does not come, which is the scrapping of some of these 5 taxes, including sanitation tax, the petroleum taxes, amongst others, there'll be a total shutdown at 3 p.m. Workers will not be able to go home. Any public commercial transport service will be cut off. First off, we've heard some descriptions of it that it's unrealistic. I don't know what you think about the drivers' unions ultimatum that they've given on this particular situation.
Thank you very much. I think that one of the gaps that we have when petrol prices are increased is with aligning with the transport increases as well. So there is always a lag between the time petroleum prices goes up and when it has to be agreed with transport owners and the various leaders, which is the JPRTU and the others, on how to increase or when to increase their fares. And it always comes with agitations. And these agitations are always a problem to the drivers. If you look at the agitation that is coming up, honestly, it is a fair agitation because prices have increased at the pumps. We have not seen the same thing happened to the transport fares. They are complaining. Nobody is listening to them. I don't know what levels of engagement we have. There should be some level of engagement such that when prices are going to increase, that would demand increases in fuel transport as well. There should be some tripartite discussion between government, the transport owners, and then also the major stakeholders to make sure that at this level we can increase, transportation costs. The challenge we are going to have is that if they should go ahead to take this decision, is going to be serious in the sense that the number of people who depend on their services on a daily basis, you can imagine what will happen.
But would you say this is a realistic ultimatum for 5 of these taxes to be scrapped? I'm sure a lot of key decisions went into the introduction of these taxes. Do you think that is a realistic call for them to say that we should scrap these taxes?
Well, from their side, of course, it's realistic. I kept saying that we are not being transparent with them and even with the consumers. We only wake up and we hear that fuel prices have gone up. As to what is driving that, no, government doesn't come to say that it's the factors that are causing prices to increase at the pumps, so that everybody will appreciate it. These drivers don't understand. They don't understand what is happening. They don't know what is causing the price. All they know is that most of them will tell you that they said they thought the rate is going up. Some of them will tell you they don't even understand what is contributing to that. So if the people don't even know what is contributing to the increase at the pumps, how will they understand that if you are telling them they should wait to increase their fare at a certain level? That is the challenge that we are facing. And so their core is fair because nobody is explaining to them what is happening. How have they been engaged so far? Prices increased, to 6.5, 6.6, 6.7. We are at 6.9. Nobody is telling them anything. So they have every reason to complain because nobody is, their transport, their leaders are not even engaging them. I don't know whether they have engaged, some people at some level, but you and I know that ever since prices have increased, transport fares will go up as well. Some of them will start charging their own fares, coupled with the road network that is also affecting them. So I think that their core is in the right direction. It is time for governments to have a roadmap between price increases at the pumps and then transport fare increase. If you are saying that when oil prices increase at a certain level, then we need to also increase prices of cost of transport at a certain level. Then before you increase prices at the pumps, engage these drivers, engage their leaders to tell them we are come to increase fuel prices. However, we will not be able to increase transport because of ABC. Then engagement will start at a certain level. That is not done. And so what is left for them is to take this decision. And they know that the only language the leadership of the country know or he understands very well is when you are taking such action.
Interesting, but up until now, we are yet to hear exactly whether government is going to engage with them. But we've been speaking to the Deputy Transport Minister, who say they are working on engaging government on this. But you'll be hearing from the MPA saying that if we scrap it, consumers will have to bear the brunt. It would affect the quality of fuel because the drivers want something, but also the issue about the quality of fuel is at stake. Then how then do we draw the line?
This shouldn't have anything to do with quality of fuel. The fuel have already been imported into the country. So at what stage will the quality be impacted? These are taxes imposed by government. Consumers are facing the hardship. Fuel prices affect every aspect of the economy. Every aspect of the economy. And we are saying that in a situation where we find ourselves now, yes, government needs revenue, but when it gets to a situation where it is, tough, just like when COVID came, government has to take some policy decisions to be able to alleviate the plight of the citizenry. We are in a stage where government can take the same decision in a short term that let's scrap these prices, these petroleum levies at this level, at this time. The people will appreciate this more. But if you don't engage them, they will not understand.
Okay, we're grateful. We'll leave you here. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon here on The Pulse. Mr. Peter Tekpede is a policy analyst who's been looking at the ultimatum. It's 48-hour ultimatum that was given by the 16 driver unions. It's elapsing tomorrow or so, because we're just under 24 hours on that. And they're saying they're threatening a total shutdown of transport services, commercial services tomorrow if 5 or so taxes are not scrapped by government. It remains to be seen what happens to it. We'll take a quick break on The Pulse. When we return, it's official. Wherever Shatta Wale is, there is drama. And today was no exception at the police headquarters during a meeting with the creative arts industry with the IGP, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare. I have details of that. You want to stay right here on The Pulse for all the showdown at the police headquarters. Well, today we always say that it's official. Wherever Shatta Wale is, definitely there's drama. So today was no exception. The IGP, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, has been meeting stakeholders since he became IGP. He's met the media, he's met civil society, he's met the religious bodies, amongst others. And today he met persons within the creative arts industry and largely showbiz, we call them. And today we had Shatta Wale amongst others who attended that meeting, and there was drama once again. And we are told that at some point Shatta Wale had to apologize to the IGP. Well, Ibrahim Ben Brako, you know, you can't call creative arts people and he won't be there. So he was there today. And he's joined me in the studio with a blow-by-blow account of what happened at the police headquarters in that meeting with the IGP. So let's start off.
Okay, first,
what happened?
First off, the name is Ibrahim Ben Brako. I get a lot of people saying Brako.
Ben Brako. Okay.
I accept that.
It's okay.
Okay, so today the IGP meets the entertainers, the stakeholders of the industry, so that he hears our concerns and then find a way forward together with the police. So all entertainers, categorize them, they were all the comedians, the filmmakers, the musicians, even the marketers and the distributors of film and music, they were all there. So it was concerns after concerns after concerns, because that's what he wanted. So Stonebwoy and Shatta Wale walk in at the same time. It was late though.
The meeting had started?
Yeah, it was already going on.
Okay.
It was already going on. I'd seen Samini, I'd seen D Black, I'd seen Kiddy, Kwame Eugene also came in. But Stonebwoy and Shatta Wale came in.
It was a star-studded meeting.
It was a star. Say it again. John Dumelo was there, Van Vicker was there. Just name them. They were all there. Stonebwoy and Shatta Wale walk in late, but then they sit at the same place, and Shatta's people were seated around them. Next, on the other lane, D Black was also sitting there. So Fred Amugi had just finished giving his concern. Another person was on the microphone. Then we heard a blurt out from Shatta. What he said, what I heard, where I was standing a few seats away from Shatta at the back, because he was a bit to the back. All I heard was, what do you mean I don't know if you take my phone out? Somebody take your phone and they tell me, say, I don't feel with me. Hey, it be disrespectful. Like it was on top of his voice. So the thing.
Whilst the meeting was going on,
someone was giving his concern. He was on the microphone.
Okay.
So the very first word calmed the whole room to a standstill. Everybody keeps quiet and was watching where the noise was from. Then we all see it was Shatta. So I quickly looked what was happening. I don't see anybody around Shatta. Stonebwoy is seated next to Shatta. So the assumption was probably it was his ranting was triggered by something Stonebwoy might have said.
Okay.
So after the ranting, he gets up and was almost walking out. And COP Nathan Kofi also gets up, he was seated at the high table. He gets up and also shouts, what do you mean? Don't you have any respect for order? You are seeing IGP here having a meeting with your same people. And you are just seated here and you are disrespecting and talking anyhow. What is going on there?
Okay.
Hey, go and take him to the CID headquarters and keep him there. So he orders his arrest. Then a number, I think 5 or 6, I stand to be corrected, they walk Shatta Wale out. Police officers walk Shatta Wale out. They go down. So I quickly come out to see what was happening. When I came out, I saw George Quay and Bulldog. And George Quay is so worried and says, what is it again? What happened, Boo? And Boo was like, honestly, I don't know. So I see them walking away. When I turn around, A+, together with other entertainers, walk out with COP Nathan Kofi Boache. And they were all pleading on Shatter's behalf. And he says, this is what I've always been talking about. Give respect to where respect is due. Good. So they all plead. And Shatawale, he says, he calls off the arrest and says, go and bring them back. So someone goes down to tell the police officers, and the same number of police officers who saw Shatta off, bring him back. Now, Pasata comes to sit in there. So we're still wondering who Shatta was talking to. Now, he was the last person to give his concern. Immediately, he picks up the microphone. He apologizes that this is not how I am, so please forgive me. And the police officer to whom I spoke like that, then everybody gets to know that, oh, he was talking to a police officer.
Okay.
Yes. So he apologizes and we move on.
So in all this, what did the IGP say? What did
the IGP was calm. He was seated. He was just watching what was going on. He didn't say a word.
Not a word?
Not a word. He doesn't say a word.
And when the apology came?
When the apology came, everybody applauded him.
And what did the IGP say?
Still, he didn't say anything. Yes.
Nothing?
He was just seated. And guess what? Shatawale, like you said, as dramatic as he can be, he wants to kneel in front of IGP and plead that entertainers should be let alone to be able to live their lives. And I think someone raised a question in there that suggested something that is part of showbiz, stunts, parts of showbiz. So when he got up, that was also what he said. But I was able to get Shatta to talk. Yes. Super. So, yes, I'm not going to tell you what he said. I think we should play the video so that everybody will see. So
let's watch it.
He said.
Your voice. Well, I think, you know, it's a whole lot. You know, I just saw people taking out their phones and nobody was talking to them. So I felt, oh, let me just take my phone, because Fred Amugi has been one of my greatest, you know, actors that, you know, I really want to be with and, you know, do a movie with. So when he was talking, I felt what he was saying was so important to me that I had to keep it for myself. So I think I took a video and one of the officers came and was like, phones are not allowed. But, you know, people were taking pictures of me as I came. So, you know, I felt like it was a bit rude. But, you know, sometimes from where I was even coming from, somebody has stolen my 100 bags of cement and some, you know, organization has gone on before I got here, so the tempers were high a bit. But, you know, that's why I got to apologize, because, you know, the IG, Mr. Kofi Boache is my, you know, they are all like people who motivate me. Mr. Kosi Fori, they are my dad. So I was just like, let me just apologize and make things nice.
Typical Shatawale there. Nice that you were able to get a word out of Shatawale though. But did he seem very remorseful, or it was just one of your showbiz stunts?
He felt, when I spoke to him off camera, and he said he wasn't emotionally right. He didn't have to do that, but I think it was at the spur of the moment, and also what you heard. And I asked him, is it really true that his bags of cement has been stolen? He said yes. He said yes. So yeah, he was coming from a bit of a heat. Yes, that's what happened over there.
So largely though, what was the reaction of the entertainers, both young and old, who were there?
To be honest with you,
saw Shatta at it again.
Everybody was stunned. Everybody was stunned, and some were even scared because he already has a pending issue. Yeah, so people, nobody was actually expecting that from him.
Okay.
Yes, what everybody was saying was he could have handled it in a different way, even if the police actually even spoke with him harshly, he could have handled it in a different way.
Do you get a sense that Shatta is frustrated out of everything that has been happening from his case up until this, so he had to make a statement for everybody to know how frustrated he is?
I can't say that, but it wouldn't come as a surprise if he is frustrated. Initially, everybody thought it was a stunt. Initially, everybody thought it was a stunt to get some awareness to him. But after I spoke with him, yeah, I got to know that it wasn't actually a stunt. It wasn't actually a stunt. And we're human beings. At times we get to a threshold of breaking of the frustration of breaking out. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is indeed frustrated. But I didn't see that with him. Shatta is one person who can actually control his composure even when there's something wrong. He is one person who can switch in between emotions easily. Yeah. So you can't tell for sure. But it won't come as a surprise. No.
Okay. Well, but in his apology to the IGP also, did he get to mention about his case and hoping that something will be done about it?
He never mentioned it. He just went straight to his concern with the industry and why we are meeting the IGP, and also apologized to the police. Nothing from his case was mentioned. Not him, not anybody there, not even the police. No, nobody mentioned his case.
Interesting. Was medical there?
Medical wasn't there. I didn't see. Okay, well, if he was there, I didn't see him.
Okay.
I didn't see medical there.
There's no way you would miss him.
Yeah, not in when I was in the auditorium or when we're done and everybody was out. No, I didn't see medical. I saw a tall list of people: John DeMello, Van Veka, Sefa, D Black, Samini, Kiddy, Kwame Eugene. Just name them. Bisa Kade was there. It's been a long time I saw him. Abeku Santana was the moderator. There were quite a number of people there.
Okay, and in all this, I'm sure after you spoke to Shatta, you got to interact with the players on their reactions to everything that happened.
Well, to them, it was the first time IGP was meeting entertainers to take their response, and they think it is a very, very good thing, so that they get closer with the police, because there are a lot of concerns, actually. There were concerns from people like George Quay, who was talking about the fact that entertainers should be cut some slack because they can't use one car for a very long time. So if entertainers or public figures are seen driving the DV plated cars, they should tone down.
Why?
Not that.
Are you about
not that. Yeah, exactly where I'm coming to. Not that they shouldn't be dealt with.
Okay.
Yes, they should stop and all inquiries should be made. But at least at times, some of the actions meted to them are a bit harsh. He was pleading. He wasn't actually saying verbatim that, convincingly, this should be done. He was pleading that if some of the actions towards these public figures can be toned down a bit when they are seen driving DV-plated cars. Yeah. Other concerns came up. Well, there was a concern by Mr. Simons also too, if it is possible that they could create a unit at the police just for piracy, so that they could understand how the piracy works, and if music is going out to effect arrest or even place orders, you know, a lot of people have been standing by the roadside selling recorded CDs. So all these things, the police will understand to be able to effect arrest.
Okay.
I think all in all, it was good.
I know that mostly these meetings with the IGP is largely closed doors. Not everything is supposed to be made public, for instance. But everything that happened with the drama and all that, I hope it did not take anything away from the main meeting.
It didn't take the
substance.
No, it didn't take the substance away.
Okay.
Because I saw one person at the high table who was noting all these concerns. So Christopher was at the high table, Abeku Santana was at the high table, and Rex Omar was there. So you could see that all the people who are the heads of the various establishments or associations in the showbiz fraternity were there. There were the comedians. So there was also a concern that was raised by Obi Ampansa and Lexi the comedian, that in case should there be a joke about public figures, are they liable to an offense?
And what was the response?
Well, they said that if it is to the president, well, that's what COP Nathan Kozibuachi said. If it is to the president, if it is to the IGP, if it is to the vice president, you haven't mentioned a name. But once you mention a name, you are going beyond your boundaries, yes. Because all these are titles, but you don't mention the name. Once you mention the name, you're going beyond the title to implicate a person. There was also the fact that COP said, there should be a workshop organized to educate, especially the bloggers, on cyber, on cybercrime, so that you will know exactly what to do and what not to do when you are crossing beyond your boundaries to defaming people. But anybody who purportedly lies to defame someone on social media is liable to an offense.
Well, Ibrahim, I'm sure subsequently we'll get to talk about this, but may I ask if it's the same phone that was released to Shatta Wale by the police or the court, ordering it to be released just yesterday?
That is the phone he uses, so I want to believe that is it, because he didn't say in his convo that it's a new phone.
It's a new phone.
Yes, he didn't say in his convo that it was a new phone.
But in all this, how did Stonebwoy react?
Okay, so all this, when Shatta is talking on top of his voice, Stonebwoy is seated quietly So everybody is thinking, because they have been talking and laughing. And the next minute, Shatta is on top of his voice. So everybody thought it might have been something Stonebwoy said. And the fact that Stonebwoy was seated quiet, he didn't even turn to look. Was seated quietly. Okay, so another thing that happens is, COP Nathan Kofi Waji said, if anybody is seen driving with a motorcade of more than all those motorcade, like 30 people in town, they are going to be arrested. Funny enough, Stonebwoy mentioned Shatta's name. Shatta, stop that thing. And though you could see the uproar in the whole room, everybody started laughing. So it was a meeting that was really good, and we're actually looking for another one to happen so that a lot of people, because not many concerns were actually heard because of the time.
Yeah. Ibrahim, thank you so much for joining us here on The Pulse. And he has all the updates and the lowdown. And then you can also visit the Joy Entertainment Facebook page.
Yes, the Joy Entertainment Facebook page, and also tonight on Prime. We're going to
all the details and all the breakdown. What you left out on The Pulse, we'll get it on the Prime. Okay, thank you very much, Ibrahim Bako, there joining us of Joy Entertainment, bringing us up to speed on that meeting. And that's how we end today's edition of The Pulse. And like I said, you can visit myjoyonline.com, the entertainment page. You can get more also from business, lifestyle, everything on myjoyonline.com. It's available for you. When we return, we have Let's Talk Showbiz. I'm sure there's more there you'd want to stay. I am MFA Pau. Many thanks for your company.